Greetings to my dear guests on this video. I wish you a pleasant viewing and look forward to your feedback in the comments. I still remember the soft hum of the espresso machine in the break room, the overhead lights flickering ever so slightly. Just another Thursday in the high-rise cage we called the Innovation Tower. The 19th floor buzzed with its usual tension, all glass walls and whispers. My corner desk overlooked the skyline, but my eyes were always on my screen. Deals don't close themselves, especially not historic ones. That morning, I was piecing together the final components of the biggest contract in the firm's history, a $99 million infrastructure package with a global energy conglomerate. The kind of deal that cements reputations, reshapes trajectories, the kind of deal you bleed for. I hadn't taken a real break in 6 weeks. I'd stopped wearing heels, my nail polish chipped, and my inbox was an apocalypse I no longer tried to tame. But I was close. So close. This wasn't just a big win. This was my win. I'd sourced the client, built the relationship from scratch, navigated every setback, finessed every clause in the contract. No team, no assistant, just me, Naomi Martinez. A name most people still got wrong in the first 10 tries. So when Michel left his phone on the shared kitchen counter while grabbing a bottled water, I wasn't snooping. I was scrolling through a Slack thread on my own phone when his lit up beside me, and I saw it, just for a second. A message preview from HM Exec Team. Let her finish the deal, then fire her. I blinked, stared, my breath hitched. Let her finish the deal, then fire her. At first, I thought maybe it wasn't about me. Maybe her referred to someone else. Maybe there was context I didn't have. Maybe I was just hallucinating from too much caffeine and not enough sleep. But Michel came back, grabbed his phone without a glance, and walked off, whistling some smug tune that suddenly sounded like a funeral march. I returned to my desk and stared at my laptop. My hands were still trembling, hovering over the trackpad. I read the line in my head again and again, trying to erase it, trying to unsee it. Let her finish the deal. Then fire her. My heart slammed against my ribs, a violent metronome of panic and rage. What kind of people let you carry the weight of a mountain just to pull the ground out from under you when you finally reach the summit? I had been with them for 7 years. 7 years. I'd built my reputation at this firm with sweat and sacrifice, canceled vacations, missed birthdays, late nights on flights, and early mornings on calls. I had earned my place, but apparently I was still disposable. Convenient only until I was no longer useful. I didn't confront anyone. Not that day, not even that week. I closed the break room door gently, returned to my seat, and finished the proposal I was working on. My fingers didn't falter, my tone didn't shift on client calls. I kept delivering, I kept smiling. Because if they wanted me to finish the deal, well, I would. To perfection. And maybe, just maybe, I'd let them think I hadn't seen a damn thing. After I saw that message on Michel's phone, something changed. Not just the pit in my stomach or the way I started side-eyeing every colleague's smile. Something deeper, quieter. Like a weight shifted behind my ribs, and for the first time, I realized it had always been there. I started remembering. Not in a bitter way. More like a slow unfurling. A rewind of all the moments I had pushed aside, smoothed over, justified. The first promotion I didn't get came after I landed the Northbridge account. I'd worked 16-hour days for 2 months, convinced the client to move from a competitor, and streamlined their onboarding so well they wrote a personal thank you letter. I still have it somewhere. But when the department restructuring happened, the director role went to Travis. Travis, who had shadowed me on the Northbridge calls and once asked me, dead serious, what CRM stood for. The second time, I was told I wasn't client-facing enough. Michel got that promotion. The same Michel who once sent a pitch deck to a CEO with insert client name here still in the header. He'd walked into my office 2 weeks before the review, asking for clarification on the metrics I'd put together for the Celex proposal. I explained everything. He nodded, thanked me, and then, surprise, presented those same insights as his own during the exec meeting. They called his report data forward and strategically holistic. I called it mine, but I didn't say a word, because I had been taught that good work speaks for itself, that eventually someone will notice, Spoiler, they didn't. The third promotion was the one that gutted me. I had just closed a multi-million-dollar sustainability partnership that required fluency in regulatory law, deep logistics understanding, and an ungodly amount of patience. I'd negotiated that deal over 6 months, often on 5 a.m. calls because of the time zone difference. It should have been my moment. I was called into Helen's office, breath held, heart pounding, and instead of congratulations, I got a smile. That type of smile. The one that comes with phrases like, "You're so valuable in your current role," and "Let's circle back in the next cycle." The promotion went to Dana. Nice girl, popular. She once told me she didn't understand spreadsheets and giggled like that was cute. Dana made cookies for the office every Thursday and always remembered birthdays. I remembered deadlines. Guess which one mattered more? And through all of this, my work kept getting diluted, rebranded, given to others with better visibility. Michelle's name appeared on reports I built. Dana got tagged on presentations I wrote. The one time I did push back, gently, via email, Helen replied, "Let's not get too hung up on credit. We're all a team here." Except we weren't. There were teams, and then there were people like me. The ones who made the gears turn in silence. The ones whose value was obvious until it wasn't. Until someone flashier came along. Until the finish line was in sight and they wanted someone more dynamic to take the photo crossing it. I swallowed every disappointment like glass, sharp and invisible. Smiled in meetings where my own words echoed back at me from someone else's mouth. I clapped when others were promoted with bullet points they stole from my decks, and I told myself this was just how it was, that I was building credibility. That one day, they'd realize they'd been leaning on me all along. But now I know, they knew, they just never planned to give me the credit. And the moment that text message flashed across Michelle's phone, it all snapped into place. Let her finish the deal, then fire her. They wanted my labor, not my legacy. But I had other plans. There are conversations you forget the minute they end, and then there are the ones that crack the whole sky open. Max Wexler wasn't supposed to be anything more than a box to check, a quiet lunch at Aventura to go over final integration terms. One of those handshake meetings upper management loves to schedule so they can say the relationship is strong at board briefings. Michael was supposed to lead. Of course. He insisted on sitting across from Max, ordered the wine without asking, and used the word synergy like it was going out of style. I smiled through it, nodded, added polite clarifications when he butchered our process diagram. But Max? Max was watching me. Not in the way men sometimes watch women in business. His eyes were steady, respectful, curious. After 20 minutes of Michelle monologuing about how we had restructured the client pipeline and we had optimized data transfer, Max interrupted. Calm, direct. He turned toward me, folded his hands neatly, and said, "This is your work, isn't it?" I blinked. Michelle froze mid-sentence, a breadstick hovering stupidly between his fingers. "Excuse me?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "This system, the flow, the redundancy resolution, that's you, not him." Michelle let out a half laugh, trying to cut the tension. "Well, Naomi's been instrumental." "No," Max said. "She built this. You just present it." Michelle's mouth snapped shut. The air shifted. Max leaned slightly forward, eyes never leaving mine. I've been in this business long enough to know when I'm looking at someone who actually understands the engine versus someone who memorized the brochure. I didn't know what to say. My throat was dry. A little voice in my head screamed, "Don't mess this up!" Then Max dropped the real bomb. "If you ever decide to work for yourself," he said, "I'd back you. No questions asked." Just like that. Michael's face went sheet white. "I mean it," Max continued, as if we were alone. "You've got the clarity, the architecture, and the nerve. You're doing the work of a founder, not a middle manager." My hands were under the table, fingers clenched into my skirt. I managed a small smile. "That's very kind of you." "It's not kind," he replied. "It's smart." The rest of lunch blurred. Michelle tried to recover, tried to lead the conversation back to neutral territory, but it was no use. Max's attention stayed on me, and my answers, real, specific, technical, kept earning quiet nods of approval. When the check came, Max stood and handed me his card, not Michelle. "Whatever happens next," he said, "don't let them box you in. People like you, people who build, you're rare." And then he was gone. I sat back down slowly. My heart was pounding. I'd spent 7 years waiting for someone to see what I really did, and when it finally happened, it wasn't my boss. It wasn't my team. It was a stranger who'd seen through the charade in 20 minutes. That night, I didn't go straight home. I walked the long way, past the lit windows of the firm's high-rise, past the reflection of myself in the glass. For the first time, I saw not the tired employee, not the overlooked asset. I saw the architect. And Max's words echoed in my mind like a dare. If you ever decide to work for yourself, that was the moment something shifted. Quietly, permanently. And no one even knew it had begun. That night, I didn't pour a glass of wine or put on music or sink into the couch like I usually did. I walked straight to my desk, kicked off my heels, and opened my laptop. The blue light glowed against the quiet dark of my apartment like a signal flare. I typed the words slowly, almost reverently, "How to start your own tech consulting firm." It felt surreal, like I was cheating on someone. But as the results loaded and the articles stacked up, something clicked inside me. I wasn't betraying the firm. They'd already betrayed me. For years I'd worked as if loyalty would eventually yield security, recognition, leadership. But Max had peeled back the curtain. He'd seen it instantly. What I'd been trying to convince myself wasn't true. They were never going to let me lead. They were just going to keep using me until they didn't need me. So I dove in. I made a checklist. Basic at first. Incorporation, legal structure, trademarks. Then deeper. Intellectual property protection, client contracts, NDA templates. I started building a war chest of knowledge, bookmarking everything, color-coding resources like I was prepping for an exam I couldn't afford to fail. I didn't sleep much that week. I kept up appearances at work, smiled in meetings, answered emails with my usual professionalism. But at night, I became someone else, a founder, a builder, a strategist. I chose the name Alta Systems. It sounded crisp, elevated, and quietly defiant. Alta, from the Latin for high, as in higher ground. As in, I wasn't staying in the pit they dug for me. The next step was legal. I didn't trust just anyone. So I called an old classmate, Aisha Khan. We hadn't spoken in years, but she was the sharpest person I'd ever known in our business law elective. She answered my message within 10 minutes and agreed to meet that Saturday. We sat at a little cafe off Congress. She was all sleek lines and fierce intellect, still the same blunt brilliance I remembered. After I laid out the situation, the firm, the deal, the text on Michelle's phone, she leaned back in her chair and said, "You waited too long, but you're right on time." Then she got to work. Aisha walked me through forming an LLC under a privacy trust. We filed everything under a holding name, something clean, untraceable. She drafted clauses for client protection, mirrored my employment contract to ensure I wouldn't violate non-competes. We filed provisional trademarks, opened a separate business account, and encrypted every document under a VPN I didn't even know existed. "I don't want to just leave," I told her one night on a call. "I want to build something they can never take credit for." "You will," she said, "but first we protect what's yours." It felt like laying bricks in secret, one at a time, slowly, methodically. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't sabotaging. I was preparing. Every night, the same ritual: work, leave the office, eat something small, lock the door behind me, turn on the desk lamp, and build. Alta Systems was still just an idea in a filing drawer, but I could feel it breathing. Not loud, not yet, but it was real. And no one, not Michelle, not Helen, not the firm, had any idea what was coming. The day the deal closed was supposed to be a triumph. After months of navigating boardrooms, legal reviews, environmental compliance hoops, and a labyrinth of contract clauses, we were finally there. I had the final Zoom call with the client's legal team scheduled at 9:30 a.m. sharp. The digital signature links had been generated, the escrow instructions confirmed, and the wire transfer authorization was prepped on both sides. This wasn't just any contract. It was a $99 million infrastructure upgrade with a global energy group, a deal that would go down in firm history, a deal I had sourced, built, negotiated, and finalized. Alone. I wore my best blazer that day. Not for them, for me. The collar was pressed, my hair pinned back, lipstick sharp enough to cut glass. The client logged on right on time. We walked through the final sections of the digital document, line by line. I explained every clause as if I hadn't been awake till 3 a.m. double-checking footnotes and currency conversions. Everything looks perfect on our end, Max said. As expected. I smiled, tight, tired. Shall we sign? He nodded. Let's make history. And just as I moved my cursor toward the Execute Contract button, my phone buzzed. I ignored it, buzzed again. I caught the preview this time. A message from Helen. It read, "Effective immediately, your employment is terminated. Please return all company property and documents. It has begun revoking access." I stared. The words didn't make sense. It took me a full 10 seconds to register that I was reading them correctly. Fired, via text, no call, no warning, no dignity, just cut, mid-keystroke, mid-deal, mid-history. I glanced back at the screen. Max was still there, waiting, unaware that my world had just shifted on its axis. I wanted to cry, scream, demand answers. But I didn't. I took a breath. I clicked Execute. Then I opened my encrypted folder, the one I'd built quietly with every signed version, every compliance note, every internal approval. I zipped the master file. I attached it to an email and sent it to the firm's legal team, the partner who was technically listed as lead, even though he hadn't touched a single page of the agreement. No message, no snark, no emotion, just the subject line. Final contract package executed copy. And then I sat back, staring at the message from Helen again. They waited until the finish line, until I had delivered the deal. Then they discarded me like a used pen. The ultimate insult wasn't even the termination, it was the timing. They had squeezed every drop of value from me, then cut me loose before they'd have to credit me. I should have broken, but I didn't. Because as I stared out the window, past the steel bones of downtown, a strange calm settled over me. They thought I had nothing left. But what they didn't realize, what they never saw through all their arrogance and blind self-interest, was that Alta Systems existed. And it was waiting. After I sent the file, I just sat there, not thinking, not breathing, just suspended. The call with the client had ended. The deal was closed, and I was out. The silence in my apartment felt loud, the kind that rings in your ears when the adrenaline drains and your heart has nowhere left to race. I hadn't even told anyone. Not Aisha, not my sister, not even myself, really. I'd been fired while signing the firm's most important contract in years. And instead of screaming or calling a lawyer or demanding a meeting, I'd finished the job. Why? Why had I given them that final piece? Why hadn't I just pulled the plug? I clicked open my inbox, almost mechanically, searching for, I don't even know, distraction? Clarity? And that's when I saw it. A flagged message buried under 2 months' worth of unread chaos. The subject line, "For when they forget what you're worth." It was from Max. The lunch meeting. The moment he saw me, really saw me. My hand hovered. Then I clicked. His words blinked back at me. "Naomi, I meant what I said. I've seen too many brilliant people burned out or boxed in by companies too short-sighted to recognize the value of the builders, the architects, the ones who do the actual lifting. If you're reading this in a moment when everything feels like it's slipping, remember, you were never the problem. You're not just good, you're rare. And if the door shuts behind you, it means it's time to build your own." Max. I stared at the screen, chest tightening. I had been this close to deleting every backup, terminating the contract post-signature, tanking the deal out of spite. The thought had crossed my mind in those hollow minutes after the firing. What did I owe them? Nothing. But what did I owe myself? Everything. I reread the letter, then again. Each time the words hit deeper. Max hadn't just seen me. He had believed in me. Enough to write this. To offer investment. To call me what I had secretly hoped someone would say all along. Rare. I got up from my desk and walked to the window. The city below looked smaller than usual. I pressed my palm against the glass. Cold, solid, real. That was it. That was the moment I decided I wouldn't just take the hit and disappear. I would pivot. Alta Systems wasn't just a contingency anymore. It was the future. I called Aisha. "We're accelerating," I said. "To what?" "To everything." She didn't hesitate. "You ready to go public?" "Not yet," I said. "But I'm ready to make moves, quietly, powerfully." We scheduled meetings, built decks. I contacted Max, thanking him for the letter, and letting him know Alta Systems was real, operational, and open to early partnerships. The firm thought they fired me at my peak, but they didn't realize that they had just funded the launch of their future competitor, because that $99 million contract? It came with visibility, with buzz, with clients. And Max? He wasn't the only one watching. The storm was just beginning. And this time, I was the one steering it. After the call with Aisha, I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table, barefoot, hoodie zipped up to my chin, hair shoved into a messy knot, and I did what I've always done best. I worked. Not for them. Not anymore. For me. First, I pulled up the auxiliary documents, the contract annexes, side agreements, bonus performance clauses. The ones I had drafted and quietly added as standard addenda, because no one in legal ever questioned the one person who knew the client's needs better than the client themselves. I modified the payment routing instructions, legally, transparently, strategically, not for the firm, for Alta Systems. See, the contract was a two-party agreement, client and provider, and I had made damn sure that the provider was defined in the final clause not as my old firm, but as a licensed consulting entity acting on behalf of a partner firm. Standard language, buried under 6 pages of legalese. Alta Systems was that licensed entity, and now it was the only one listed in the final payment schedule. I re-uploaded the documents to the client portal, time-stamped, notarized, co-signed by their rep during the final call. No one had noticed the details. No one ever did. They assumed the name on the deal would always be theirs. They never expected the architect to own the blueprint. I sent Aisha everything. She reviewed it, slow and methodical. "This is airtight," she said finally. "They can contest it, but they'll lose. You filed it clean, the client signed it clean, and the routing is technically accurate. The money is legally yours." I let out a long, shaky breath. "How much again?" I whispered. $99 million, she said, her voice unreadable. "Minus taxes, legal fees, and escrow. You'll see the first full installment in the morning. Direct deposit, verified and authorized." I leaned back in my chair, fingers pressed to my lips. It didn't feel real yet. I wasn't jumping for joy or crying tears of vindication. I wasn't even angry anymore. I was still, deep in the marrow kind of still. The kind that comes when you know you've just broken a cycle that nearly broke you. At 5:42 a.m., the sky began to soften. Pale pink crept over the city. I stood at the window again, phone in hand, watching the skyline shift. Then it buzzed. Notification: deposit received. Amount: $99 million USD. Alta Systems operating account. I stared at the screen. Not a typo, not a glitch. Mine. Not because I fought for it, but because I built it. Because I kept going when every sign told me I was invisible. Because I didn't destroy the contract in anger. I made it the foundation of my empire. They fired me at my peak. And now? I was just getting started. By 9:07 a.m., the first email arrived. Subject line: Urgent. Payment discrepancy. Contract 7. F2139. It was from Trevor in finance. Short. Panicked. "Hey, Naomi. Our records show the funds from the client wire were not received in our operating account this morning. Confirming. Do you know if there was a delay or miscommunication regarding routing? Please advise ASAP. T." I didn't reply. 3 minutes later came another. This time from Helen. No greeting. Just frantic. "Where is the money? Call me." Then it escalated. I watched, silent and composed, as a full-blown meltdown unfolded in real time. Slack threads exploded. Emails pinged by the second. I wasn't even in their system anymore, but I still had access to one external-facing email tied to the deal, because no one had thought to revoke it when they cut me loose via text. That's how I watched the spiral begin. They couldn't find the funds. They couldn't trace the deposit. Their flagship deal had vanished into a legal black hole, and no one could explain how Naomi Martinez, terminated employee, was now the legal conduit of a $99 million transaction. The firm's partner group was reportedly in a closed-door meeting by 10 a.m. phones off. Security tight. I imagined the whiteboards filling with panicked arrows and the IT team flipping through server logs they didn't even know existed until this morning. And somewhere in the chaos, Michelle broke. I got a call at 10:42 a.m. from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. His voice was shaky, almost angry, but not at me, at the realization. Naomi, I don't know what you did, but Jesus, they're saying you rerouted the deal, that you own the damn contract. People are freaking out. This is fraud, Naomi. You can't just... Click. I didn't bother listening to the rest, because it wasn't fraud. It was clean. It was strategic. And it was legal. I had dotted every I, crossed every T. I had documented every amendment, filed it under review, and sent copies to both parties, including the firm's own legal rep, who had signed without reading. Standard approval, standard procedure, nothing hidden. They were scrambling, but I was calm, because panic only lives where control has been lost. And I hadn't lost control. I had taken it back. At 11:26 a.m., I got an unexpected message from Max. Well, just got a call from a mutual acquaintance. Apparently, you broke the system in half and walked out with a war chest. I knew you were brilliant. I didn't realize you were legendary. Let me know when you're ready to talk scale. I smiled. It wasn't revenge. It was validation. Max had seen me before anyone else did. And now, the rest of the world was starting to catch up. By noon, the firm's PR team had started quietly scrubbing my name from their website, trying to rewrite the narrative, spin control, whisper campaign. But it was too late. They had fired the architect of their biggest win, and she had walked away with the blueprint, the contract, and the capital to build something untouchable. They filed the suit 2 weeks later. It was always going to happen. I knew that. You don't walk away with $99 million, clean or not, without someone trying to claw some of it back. The official complaint arrived by courier: breach of fiduciary duty, interference with corporate interest, failure to disclose material changes. Legal words wrapped in desperation. The firm claimed damages, claimed I'd operated in bad faith, claimed they were blindsided, but what they really meant was, we didn't think she had the guts. The amount? Laughable, considering the size of the deal. They were asking for $1.7 million in restitution. Not the full contract. Just enough to save face. Just enough to say they won something. Just enough to show their board they were doing something. Aisha handled the response. She was calm, surgical. We countered with a full documentation trail, signed acknowledgments, time-stamped contracts, email approvals from their own legal and compliance teams. Every missing disclosure had been filed, every signature traceable. After a few weeks of posturing and one extremely awkward mediation session, the firm's lawyers offered to settle. Quietly, no press, no admission of wrongdoing on either side. We agreed. Not because I was guilty, not because they deserved a cent, but because I was already building something far more valuable than their petty payout could touch. I wired the $1.7 million without blinking. No fight, no fuss. Let them think they'd won something. It didn't matter, because while they were filing lawsuits, I was filing incorporation papers for Alta Systems Global. I was setting up office space downtown. I was meeting with Max and 2 other investors who'd come out of the woodwork, all offering seed funding, equity partnerships, and access to client rosters the firm could only dream of. I hired my first 2 employees, an engineer I once mentored who'd been quietly let go during budget cuts, and a former data analyst who messaged me on LinkedIn with the subject line, "Please tell me you're hiring." I was. Every day, I watched the pieces fall into place. Legal, technical, financial. each one like a brick in the foundation of something unstoppable, something that had my name on it from day one. And while the firm clung to what little pride they had left, I had something far more dangerous: momentum. They could have kept me, promoted me, respected me. Instead, they fired me at my most powerful moment. Now, I was free, and I was just getting started. 6 months later, Alta Systems wasn't just running, it was thriving. We'd moved into a sleek, open-concept office downtown, sunlight spilling through tall windows that looked out over the city that once tried to contain me. The walls were lined with whiteboards scribbled with real ideas, not performative buzzwords. Real work, real people, real impact. Max had come on as an official partner. Strategic capital, quiet confidence, and the kind of network that took most founders a decade to build. Together, we signed contracts that made the old firm's record-breaking deal look like a warm-up lap. We weren't just consulting. We were architecting new standards: systems for clean energy networks, adaptive logistics models for global nonprofits, data compliance solutions that didn't just meet the rules, but reinvented them. Every week brought something new: new clients, new hires, new momentum. The empire was building itself. And this time, it had the right name on the door. Then, one quiet Tuesday afternoon, Michelle showed up. I was reviewing a design brief when the receptionist buzzed my line. "There's a... Michelle, says he used to work with you?" I paused. "Send him in." He looked older, paler. The usual arrogance drained from his posture. His suit didn't quite fit right, like it had been bought for a life that had stopped fitting too. "Naomi," he started, hands half raised like he wasn't sure if this was a peace talk or a confession. I didn't know where else to go. I waited. "I was let go," he said, lowering into the chair across from me. "After the fallout with the firm, word got around. No one's calling back. I made mistakes. I know that." I said nothing. He swallowed hard. "I heard what you're building, and I thought, maybe there's room. I could help." That's when I realized something. There was a time I would have relished this moment, the poetic reversal, the apology, the plea. But I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt done. "Michelle," I said, my voice even, "this company is built on integrity, on work that speaks for itself, on valuing the people who actually do the building." He nodded slowly. I know. That's why I'm here. And that's exactly why I can't hire you." He flinched, but didn't argue. He knew. "I'm not angry," I said. "I just don't go backward." He stood, nodded once, and left without a word. I watched him go, then turned back to my screen. The empire was still growing. I had meetings with 2 international clients the next day, a product demo on Thursday, and an internal celebration Friday for our first $250 million milestone. There were hands at this table now, new hands, trusted ones, and I had built every inch of it. They fired me thinking they were closing a chapter, but all they really did was set the prologue